Happy Sabbath, everybody. Everybody happy? Okay, that sounds a little bit better, but I'm looking around and I don't see everybody smiling. So I want you to just turn your eyes upon Jesus and look full in his wonderful face. And all the things that stress us will be removed out of the way because we are here today to worship. What do you say? Amen. So let us sing that song, Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus. Ready? Not quite yet. And while they are looking for it, let me just say welcome to all those who are visiting with us. There are some here whose names were not called, but we recognize you all the same. And we don't only want you to come today, we want you to come back. And if you are here and you are looking for a home church, then this is the place. Because here is where we encourage people to turn their eyes upon Jesus and to look full in his wonderful face. Let us sing. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face. And the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Our call to worship this morning is coming from Isaiah 55 verses 6 and 7, which says, Seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. And let him turn unto the Lord, and he will have mercy on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above the heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Oh, Heavenly Father, we thank you that amidst the vicissitudes of life, your people can assemble here to worship and to praise your marvelous name. Lord, as we come, we bring our problems, we bring our guilt, we bring all our challenges to you. There's no other place that we can lay these. So we lay them at your feet today. May you accept us, forgive us our sins, and speak now to our hearts, we pray. In Jesus' holy name, amen.
We'll remain standing as we repeat our affirmation of faith, which is taken from Revelation 14, verses 6 through 12. It's on the infold of your program, and it also should be on the screen. And it says, And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. And worship him that made heaven and earth, the sea, and the fountains of waters. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And a third angel followed her, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. and their smoke ascended up forever and ever. And they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth his mark in his name. But here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Because of this, we are going to sing the hymn number 348. It says, the church has one foundation, and thank God it is Jesus Christ our Lord.
The church has one foundation, 'tis Jesus Christ our Lord. She is his new creation by water and the word. From heaven he came and sought her to be his holy bride. With his own blood he bought her, and for her life he died. Elect from every nation, yet one o'er all the earth. Her charter of salvation, one Lord, one faith, one birth. One holy name she blesses, partakes one holy food, and to one hope she presses with every grace and due. Though with a scornful wonder men see her soul oppressed, but complete rend asunder the earth where she doth rest. Yet saints her word are keeping, their cry goes on how long, and soon the night of weeping shall be the morn of song. Mid toil and tribulation and turmoil of her war, she waves her consolation of peace forevermore. Till with the visions glorious, her longing eyes are blessed, and the great church victorious shall be the church at rest.
Turn your Bibles with me to the book of Leviticus, and we'll be reading from chapter 10, reading verse 1 and 2. Leviticus chapter 10, reading from verse 1 and 2. Let us go together. And Nahab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer, and put fire therein, and put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he had commanded them not. And there went out fire from the Lord, and it devoured them, and they died before the Lord. There ended the reading of God's holy word.
It is the hour of prayer. And if you chose to come to the altar for prayer, you can do so at the end of the song. Let's kneel for prayer. Let us pray. Our Father and our God, Creator and Sustainer of life, we're thankful to you that you have brought us here another morning, that we can come to worship you in spirit and in truth. We come before you now and humble bow, asking forgiveness of our sins, that our prayers can be heard. So as we come this morning, we lay before you our burdens, our sad hearts, those that are mourning, those that are depressed, those that are jobless, and those who just want you to lift them up this morning. We ask that you will hear and answer our individual prayers as we mumble them in our hearts. We know that at times our minds seem confused, but we ask that you will put the words in our mouth, that as we speak them, that you will hear and you will answer. And so we have come this morning with heavy hearts. But we are thanking you that we could come into the house of prayer to lay our burdens at your feet. And we know that when we are through, that our spirits will be lifted high. And so we come placing those that are sick among us. I will call the lists that we have. Sister Blackman, Sister Bowen, Sister Douglas, Sister Grant, Sister Nathan, Brother Nemhard, Sister and Brother Smith, Brother Randall, Sister Foster, Brother Kamal, Sister Borland, Sister Thompson, Sister Johnson, and Brother McIntosh. And we know that there are others among us, and so we want to include them in the list. We also want to place before you Sister Mooney and her granddaughter and the rest of the family. They are mourning the loss of a husband, a grandfather, a brother in this church, and we know that the tears will flow, but we ask that you will comfort their hearts as they mourn. We know they're mourning because of a loved one, and no one was supposed to die, but this has happened. And so, Lord, we are placing them into your hands, asking you that you will enfold them and that you will make them yours again and again and again. We also pray for our families as they mourn the loss. We ask that you will comfort their hearts also. Brother Robinson, who is not on our sick list this morning, but he has been sick for a long time. And he's saddened also because of the loss of his wife. And he is relocating to Orlando. We pray and ask that as he leaves this church and go to Orlando, that church that he goes will be a friend to him, and that they will lift him up in prayers on a daily basis. We pray also for his sons and the other family members. It seems as if it is lingering so long in his mind that it is, even when you talk with him, he still cries. And so we know that the burden is so much to bear, but we just ask that you will be with him and that you will lift him up always. We pray for those who walk up to the altar this morning. We know not what is on their minds, but we know that you know everything. And so again, we place them into your hands, asking for your healing touch to be on them. That as you heal them, Lord, they will come back to praise you again and again and again. So we ask that you will draw nigh unto them. A pastor this morning is about to break the bread to us. We ask that you will endure him with a spirit from an eye, that when he speaks to us this morning, it will be healing for our souls. And those who have come to be relieved for their burdens, they will see just this happen. And so again, we place him and his wife and the remainder of the family into your hands. This morning also the choir will sing for us. We ask for a special blessing upon them and upon the leader, Elder Powell, that as he works with them each day, that we will see the zeal coming out and they will want to sing for you. Bless each of us as individuals. Bless our visitors that are here this morning, those that come from near and afar. We ask that you will be merciful unto them. And their unanswered prayers that they have asked, we pray that today and this week they will see answers to your prayers, to their prayers, and they will come to have a closer walk with you. Direct our thoughts today and our minds, and keep us focused in everything that we do. And as we lay our burdens at your feet, we just pray again that we will see you in a different light. And on that day when you shall burst the clouds, all of us who are here will be ready to meet you in the air. This is our prayers we pray in Jesus' holy name.
As we listen to the prayer and the list of those who are not able to be here this morning, and there are still more names that should be on that list, it just tells us how awesome God is and how great he is towards us so that we can be here. And that is why I ask us to turn our eyes upon Jesus and to look full in his wonderful face. And to worship the Lord as we come to worship today. In front of me here I see written on this note, worship in song. And so the choir is going to do their share of contribution to this service by worshiping in song. And the song that they are going to do for us is really fitting for the time. It says the fight is on. The trumpet sound is ringing out. The cry to all is heard afar and near. The Lord of hosts is marching on to victory, and praise the Lord, he will land victoriously. So the choir will sing for us. I opened my mouth to talk, and my eyes reached on Brother Randall.
Amen.
Praise the Lord.
Amen.
Brother, you have made our day, and I'm just going to invite you and Sister Randall, or both of you. Oh, yes, I'll bring him out. Yes, you can come. Got it. Somebody, good. Wow.
It is with the greatest of appreciation and love that I stand here this morning. Brother Randall and I would like to thank the church for your prayers, your calls, your texts, your visits, and your monetary help in our time of great tribulation. On November 2nd, Brother Randall and I suffered a great setback, but to God be the glory. We can be able to worship with you today. Amen. We are still healing and still need the prayers of those we love. I will not go into details now, but as soon as it is time to do so, we will tell you in details of our journey. But in all this, we are more than conquerors. Amen. But God is not a man that he should lie. He said he will be with us, and he was, and he still is. Amen. To God be the glory. Thank you. Amen.
Some through the waters, some through the flood, some through the fire, but all through the blood. This time we will gather the children's offering. It's time for the children's story. And during this time, they do come around and gather an offering, which helps to defray the building of our church. So we'll sing now as they come forward.
Those dollars dropping, watch them as they fall. They belong to Jesus, building up his cause. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus, will you join the cause? See those little builders, let not pass by you. They are happy builders and they're in the master's plan. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus, will you join the cause? See those dollars dropping, watch them as they fall. They belong to Jesus, building up his cause. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus, will you join the cause? See those little builders, let none pass by you. They are happy builders in the master's plan. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus, will you join the cause? See those little builders, let none pass by you. They are happy builders in the master's plan. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus, will you join the cause? See those little builders, let none pass by you. They are all for Jesus, will you join the cause? See those dollars dropping, watch them as they fall. They are all for Jesus, building up his cause. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus, will you join the cause? See those little builders, let none pass by you. They are happy builders in the master's plan. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus, will you join the cause? See those little builders, let none pass by you. They are happy builders in the master's plan. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus, will you join the cause? See those little builders, let none pass by you. They are happy builders in the master's plan. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars as sunrise seen as dollars fall. They are all for Jesus. Will you join the cause?
Happy Sabbath, boys and girls. Happy Sabbath, my church family. This story that I am about to tell you, this is a true story that happened many, many years ago in Africa. And it reads, 11-year-old Samuel Najijima saw that his cousins were growing tobacco on their farm in southern Rwanda. The cousins were earning more money selling tobacco than Samuel made selling potatoes, peas, beans, maize from his farm. And another word for maize is corn. He decided to plant tobacco, but Samuel didn't tell his big sister. And he planted tobacco in the corner of the field when she wasn't at home. Samuel lived with his 18-year-old sister in a small house on a plot of a farmland. Father and mother had divorced and started new families elsewhere. Weeks passed after Samuel secretly planted the tobacco. The crop began to grow. Big sister was not pleased, but she noticed the tobacco plants. "What have you done?" she asked brother. "I saw that our cousins were making lots of money selling tobacco." Samuel said, "I decided to grow tobacco so we also can have money. Life is never good when you do that. God has forbidden." She said, "Tobacco is from the devil. You can't feel full when you smoke. You can't quench your thirst when you smoke. It is from the devil." Big sister gathered up the dry grass and scattered it over the tobacco plants. Then she struck a match, lighting the dry grass. Soon a fire was roaring through the tobacco plants. But the fire didn't stop there. A flame leaped from the tobacco plants and over the edge that divided the field from the small house where the brother and sister lived. In a flash, the edge was engulfed in flames. Samuel and big sister watched in shock. They didn't know what to do. Everything was happening so quickly. Big sister covered her eyes with her hands. The fire was close to the house, and she couldn't bear to see the house burn down. She and Samuel would lose everything. At that moment, Samuel saw a shining man in white, in a white robe apparel in the sky. The man raised his hand over the fire and lowered them. As he gestured, the fire went out in an instant. Then the man disappeared. Their house was saved. Samuel stared in astonishment at the blackened, smoking edge, not hearing the crackling of the fire. Big sister curiously peeked out from behind her hands. For a moment, nobody said anything. Samuel's big sister couldn't believe their eyes. Samuel finally spoke. "God protect us," he said. "I saw an angel." Big sister was overjoyed. She couldn't believe that an angel of the Lord had camped at their home and to deliver them. Samuel and big sister talked for the rest of the day about God's amazing protection. That evening, they thanked God in prayer. "Thank you for protecting us and our belongings and our house," Samuel prayed. "Thank you that we still have a house to live in, though the fire was about to consume it." Big sister prayed. Nearly 50 years has passed since the fire, but Samuel still remembers the fire. Remember that day as if it had just happened. "I never forget," he said. "This was the moment when I understood that God protects." So boys and girls, you must always be a leader and not a follower. When you see your friend doing things that are wrong, you're not supposed to follow them because you know better, because you have God, okay? So always follow God and not the devil. At this time, Nathan will pray, and then Kaylin.
Dear Jesus, we thank you for this lovely day. Help us, what else? Help us to be good boys and girls. In Jesus' name, amen.
Dear Lord, thank you for waking each of us up this morning, and thank you for bringing us to church safely. I thank you for protecting each of us, and I pray that you always will. And I also pray for the offering that it will go to your intended cause. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Everyone, please stand. Boys go first. Sorry, girls go first. Sorry. Yeah. And our boys go after. Sorry.
Beams of heaven as I go through the wilderness below, guide my feet in peaceful ways, turn my midnights into days. When in the darkness I would grow, faith always sees a star of hope, and through life's toils, grief and dangers, I shall get home someday. I do not know how long 'twill be, or what the future holds for me, but this I know: if Jesus leads me, I shall get home someday. Oftentimes my sky is clear, joys abound without a tear, though a day so bright begun, clouds may hide tomorrow's sun. There'll be a day that is always bright, a day that never yields to night, and in this light, the streets of glory I shall behold someday. I do not know how long 'twill be, or what the future holds for me, but this
You have to forgive me if it seems as if my emotions get in my way a while ago, but probably I'm not as tough as I look. This morning we are still here for worship, and let me just make this known for those who don't know the people up here. When you go outside to greet, I don't want you to greet the person who did the scripture reading as Brother T. Jones. That was Brother Campbell. And the person who did the prayer, I don't want you to greet him as Leader C. Fiddler either. That's Elder Chambers. Outside of that, the program remain as is. But this morning when I ask us to turn our eyes upon Jesus and look full in his wonderful face and forget everything else, remembering that we are here to worship, I did not see Pastor's topic. Destruction in the house of God. I did not see it, but it works well. And Pastor Baptiste, we are thankful for him. Amen. He has been with us here for the better part of 3 years, and I think he is doing well. And I think he promises to do even better. Amen. And so this morning I feel privileged to introduce him to you as our speaker, the one who will break the bread of life unto us, the one who will put us in a position that we can leave here today going out like the 3 Hebrew boys went out after the fire was quenched. And so today, Pastor Baptiste will speak to us just before he comes forward. The choir will again bless our hearts with singing.
Thank you so much for that wonderful rendition. Could somebody say amen? Praise the Lord. I look at Elder Powell and I say, Lord, I need to give him space up here. Hence the reason why we need to move out of this church into a new environment. Could somebody say amen? Brother Randall, Sister Randall, oh, how our hearts feel good this morning. Say, to God be the glory. I'm so happy to be part of the family of God. God has a church on this earth, a church, Ellen White says, it is enfeebled and it is defective. Yet the church is the one object upon which God bestows in a special sense his special regard. It is the theater of his grace in which he delights to reveal his power to transform the hearts of men. And that is taken from the book Acts of the Apostles, page 12. I find something else that is very comforting. It says, the church is God's refuge. It is God's fortress, which he holds in a revolted world. Do we have a planet that is revolting? Do we have a world that is riddled with problems? Yes, beloved, we do. Yet, in spite of that, God has his church. And he says, the gates of hell shall not prevail against his church. Yes, we have become a secularized society. We are living in an age when children are told that God is dead, that the church is irrelevant, and morals are outdated. Yes, my friends, we live in a world that is saturated by sex and given over to greed. Some establishments, they want to advertise and promote tires. What did they put there? Sex symbol. I don't know what that has to do with tires. But this is the world in which we live. Everybody seems to be sex-ploding. Beloved, I want to submit to you today that if our civilization is to go forward, we must go back and pick up those precious moral values that we have left behind. When we say moral values, we are talking about the concepts of what is right from what is wrong. It seems that some people have right mixed up for wrong, and vice versa. Today, my dear friends, I want you to turn with me in your Bibles to the book of Leviticus. Leviticus chapter 10, reading verse 1 and 2. They are very poignant and they are very succinct verses. It says, and Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer, and put fire therein, and put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he commanded them not. The question that begets us, what is strange fire? I submit to you this morning that strange fire is anything that God disapproves of. When what God says, he means, and what he means, he says. anything outside of God's saying becomes strange fire. Look at verse 2. And there went out fire from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. Perhaps you are saying that was really severe judgment. Perhaps you are saying it was quick and swift judgment. But I want to let you know that these two boys, they came from a very privileged family. Their parents were very significant ones in Israel. Aaron was the high priest. And these two boys, beloved, in spite of the training that they received, over a period of time, they allowed the things of the world to benumb their sensibilities, hence this punishment. So as we look at the account of Nadab and Abihu, we will see that in the worship of God, there is a right way and a wrong way. Nadab and Abihu offered strange fire unto the Lord. I've heard people saying, "Is one God." And let me tell you, that is true. And some are saying that it doesn't matter how we worship this God. All roads lead to the same place. Something is inherently wrong in that. There has to be a right way and a wrong way, God's way and the devil's way. And so those two boys worship God in a way that was depicted as strange fire. Strange fire means something foreign to the will of God. Something that was adulterous. Something that was unauthorized. There are things that God says that are pertinent and very important to worship. Sometimes, beloved, we see the way some creeping compromises are happening in the church. They are coming in so gradually and taking over. Are you with me? But God makes it abundantly clear that strange fire should not be permitted in His church. Isaiah 48 and verse 17. The gospel prophet puts it this way: "Thus saith the Lord, thy Redeemer, the one of Israel, I am the Lord thy God, which teacheth thee." So who teach you? God. He says, "I am the great teacher." And then look at the other part of the text, says, "which leadeth thee." Who lead you? I say, the one who is leading me is Jehovah God. No wonder the song says, "Guide me, O thou great Jehovah, pilgrims through this foreign land." So God is the one who is the ultimate teacher, and He is the ultimate leader. Look at this, Patriarchs and Prophets, page 359. The servant of the Lord says, "The great light and privileges bestowed required returns of virtue and holiness corresponding to the light given. Anything short of this, God cannot accept. I am privileged because God has shown on my pathway light. God has shown light to your pathway. And this is why it is very important, if you know what is good and just and honest, you should follow the light. You cannot say, I know the will of God and live contrary to it. To whom much is given, much is what? Required. The Bible says, and the times of our ignorance, God winks. But when light is come, we have to follow the light. So right and wrong is very important. The servant of the Lord continues, at the hour of worship, as the prayers and prayer of the people were ascending to God, 2 of the sons of Aaron took each his censer and burned fragrant incense thereon, to rise a sweet odor before the Lord. But they transgressed his command by the use of strange fire. Patriarchs and prophets, it continues, for burning the incense, they took common instead of the sacred fire which God himself had kindled, and which he had commanded to be used for this purpose. She says, for this sin, a fire went out from the Lord and devoured them in the sight of the people. Beloved, we cannot meddle with holy things. We are told, beloved, in an act of disrespect for the Word of God, taking lightly the work of God, Nadab and Abihu attempted to irreverently worship God in defiance of the holiness of God. So they knew what God's will for them was, but still they disobeyed God. So is reverence important in the house of worship? Very important. Point number 2. Nadab and Abihu failed to listen to the word of God. They knew what was supposed to be done, when it was to be done, and how it was to be done. But they weren't going to do it God's way. They would do it on their own way. Friends of mine, Matthew Henry in his commentary says that the 2 boys, they sank to the level where God prohibited certain things that were unclean. Unclean to eat and unclean to drink. And those boys were intoxicated. Could you imagine 2 priests going on the platform to preach, and before they get up here, they are stumbling up and down the place? Beloved, what an age in which we live. Isaiah 5 and verse 20 says, woe unto them that call evil good, and good evil, that put darkness for light, and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet, and sweet for what? Beloved, as preachers, sometimes we don't want to offend anybody. So we give the buttery, sweet sounding sermons. And when you ask somebody, what did you learn in church? How was church? Well, pastor, I preach, you know. But you don't know what he preached. Some folks raise their hands, hallelujah, praise the Lord. Beloved, we have to know what we are saying amen for. So importantly, when we rely on the flesh instead of the Holy Spirit, when we seek to have it our way, when we fail to abstain from conformity to the world. When we go through the motions, we offer strange fire unto who? Unto the Lord. Patriarchs and Prophets, page 360. Nadab and Abihu had not in their youth, and this is for parents. Nadab and Abihu had not in their youth been trained to habits of self-control. The father's yielding disposition, his lack of firmness for right, had led him to neglect the discipline of his children. His sons had been permitted to follow inclination, habits of self-indulgence, long cherished, obtain a hold upon them, which were the responsibility of the most sacred office and not power to break. So sometimes, beloved, in this age when children are growing up, we don't want anybody to correct our children. You don't correct them, neither the church, neither the school. It's my child. Beloved, habits that are formed now would become very hard to break. See a child running up in the sanctuary, eating and drinking. Pastor, leave the child alone. The child will grow it out. Grow it out. Let me tell you, it is growing in. And part of the child's character is being formed. Are you with me? The first 6 years of a child's life are the formative years. The child's mind during those years become like concrete, thoroughly mixed and permanently set. This is why the God of the universe says, train up a child so that when the child becomes old, he will not depart from it. But those two boys, their father, like Eli, overlooked their transgression. When those two young men who held church office were running the ladies and making havoc in Israel, the father said, well, leave them alone. Let them stay in the office. If they do not remain there, my pride will be touched. Are you with me? And hence, the result of what happened here. As we plug into the Word of God, beloved, we are told that it is the pastor's responsibility to teach habits of true reverence to the church members. It is the elder's duty as well. Are you with me? 1 Timothy 3:15 says, but if I tarry long, that thou mayest know how thou oughtest to behave thyself in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and ground of the truth. Behavior is very important. And your behavior is really informed by your mind. If your mind is not attuned to the will of God, your behaviors will be contrary to God. Are you with me? When a church has been raised up and left uninstructed, the minister has neglected his duty and will have to give an account to God for the impressions he allowed to do what? Prevail. Testimonies to the Church, volume 5, page 500. I don't want any blood any people's blood on my shoulder. Days coming, a day of reckoning, when as pastor, as people, we all have to stand before God and give an account of our stewardship. When the book shall be opened, what will it reveal? And so manuscript release, volume 6, page 321. The churches are fast being converted to the world. They have beautiful music and splendid decorations, but they are fruitless trees bearing nothing but leaves. The churches, and some people will not come to worship except they hear the band playing. Some people, beloved, they want to hear great oratory speeches. Beloved, our emotions are important, but we need to operate on principle and not emotions alone. The shouting and clapping and carrying on, and church sanctuaries like the theater with lights all around. Beloved, this is not what God commanded. Are you with me? This is not God's will. Ezekiel 22 and verse 26 says, "Our priests have violated my law and have profaned my holy things. They have put no difference between the holy and the profane." Look at verse 26, Ezekiel 22. "Neither have they showed difference between the unclean and the clean, and have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profaned among them." Oh, beloved, look at time to which we have come. I want to read from the book of Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 28. It says, "Let us have grace, whereby we may serve God acceptable, with reverence and what? Godly fear." So reverence and godly fear is very important. For our God is a what? Consuming fire. God is not like man that we shall trifle with him. Oh, beloved, "You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary, for I am the Lord." Reverence is our response to God's greatness. And it has many different aspects to reverence. It is a deliberate caution in how we approach God. Reverence is also a fearful attitude towards God, based on godliness and our desire to obey him in all things. A person who is not reverent in his attitude towards God and sacred things demonstrate his what? His ignorance. He is not acquainted with God and therefore does not love and respect him or his possessions. So reverence is the test of a genuine Christian experience. Now here we have some issues. I wish if I was not the messenger to bring it to you, but listen to it. I have to. There is a growing tendency to place the sacred and eternal on the level with common things. Nothing that is sacred, nothing that pertains to the worship of God should be treated with carelessness and indifference. Testimonies to the Church, volume 5, page 491. The Lord, we are told, was very strict in his requirements for the leaders of the Exodus movement respecting reverence, and very severe in dealing with their exhibitions of irreverence. The Lord told the Israelites that the Ark of the Covenant was holy and that they must not touch it lest they should what? What did this brother do? He tried to help out God, right? What was his name? Brother Uzzah. The road was bumpy and rugged, and as the ark of the living God was being moved through, it looked as if it was going to fall. And he reached out to help God. Listen to me, beloved. This church that I'm a part of, this church that you are a part of, it may look as if it's going to go down. It may look as if it's going to fall. But don't help out God. Don't help out God. Only do what God expects you to do. And so, beloved, God has the church as the apple of his eye. And this church, militant as it may appear, eventually it will be God's church triumphant. And the question is whether or not we will be in this church when it moves on in a triumphant way. Exodus 3 and verse 5, and he said, draw not nigh thither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is what? This church is on holy grounds. And the very environs on which it stands is holy ground. Very important. Many have become bold in irreverence because the Lord does not execute his sentence against transgression immediately. We say, God, I do this, I get away. Let me do it again. So we become steep in wrongdoing. God didn't struck me down. He will not do it again. Beloved, don't play with God. The word of God says in Ecclesiastes 8:11, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do what? To do evil. Don't trifle with God, my friends. When we enter the house of God, we should give careful heed to the instruction in Ecclesiastes 5, verse 1 and 2. It says, keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Verse 2. Be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. For God is in heaven, and thou upon earth. Therefore, let thy words be what? Let thy words be few. You know, I told you how the mind operates. How we inform our mind is how we are going to behave. If we put good words in our minds, then it will show by our actions. Amen. So our words are very important. Some people engage their mouth before their brain. Are you with me? I always say to myself, think before I what? Even in family relationships, beloved, you have your wife, you have your husband, you have a heated discussion, it may be better for you to walk away. Walk away from trouble. Are you with me? And come back prayerfully again. Amen? God's house should be treated in a different manner than we treat our ordinary homes. Are you with me? We should. Testimonies to the Church, volume 5, page 491. To the humble, believing soul, the house of God on earth is the gate of heaven. The song of praise, the prayer, the words spoken by Christ's representatives are God's appointed agencies to prepare a people for the church above, for that loftier worship into which there can enter nothing that defile it. Amen. Praise the Lord. What we are doing down here is like a dress rehearsal for the real thing. And if you are waiting to be reverent when you get up there, let me tell you, you can't make it, because it's one of the requirements. So the gate of heaven, Genesis 28:17 says, and he was afraid and said, how dreadful is this place? This is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So the church is like the gate to what? You are preparing for his soon return. Let's look at another point here. When the worshippers enter the church, they should do so with decorum, passing quietly to their seats. Common talking, whispering and laughing should not be permitted in the house of worship, either before or after. Am I making myself clear with God's word? Testimonies to the Church, volume 5, page 492. You see, friends, reverence and respect for church sanctuaries and facilities must be taught to children if they are ever to appreciate the biblical importance of showing reverence for God. It has to begin in the home and reinforce in the church. And I should say the school, but what is happening here? The school, it does not have the same value system as we do. So when your children go to an unchristian school, they become confused because the teacher don't pray, the teacher don't read the Bible, and friends are there who become their peers who may not have the same value system. So it's a conflict. And so we always recommend the home, the school, and the church. And when all these are saying the same things, your children has a better chance of standing up in a hostile world and stand for purity. Amen. Parents should teach their children early in life. They should see to it that their children visit the bathroom and obtain a drink before services begin. Then they should see to it that they remain reverent during the what? During the service. So we have a lot of distractions in the house of God. Ellen White says in Testimonies for the Church, Volume 5, page 498, I am pained as I enter the house where God is worshipped to see the dress of both men and women. If the heart and character were indicated by the outward apparel, then certainly nothing could be heavenly about them. Strong words. I so thank God the congregation I serve does not, generally speaking, fit this one. You look as if you are bound for the land of the pure and the holy. But you go to some churches, beloved, you don't even know if this is an Adventist church. And as we delve a little more into this, you are going to see something. The outward display of dress is made of greater consequence than the adornment of the what? Character. Dress will not make it into heaven. It is your character. The only thing you can take from this life to the next is your character. And to the parent again, she says in volume 4, page 643, almost as soon as children come into the world, they are subjected to fashion's demands. Little children hear more of dress than of their salvation. They see their mothers more earnestly consulting the fashion plates than the Bible. We need to get back to the old time religion. Thy word have I hidden in my heart, that I might not sin against thee. Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed to the word of God. And that is Testimonies for the Church, volume 4, page 643. And so we plug in again to the word of God, 1 Timothy 2:9, as we move this subject about distraction a little further. It says, in like manner also, that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with broidered hair, or gold, or pearls, or costlery. What does that mean? What does it mean? Let me tell you, beloved, God characterizes His church. And He says, my church is represented by a woman. A woman that is clean, that does not have all these kind of jewelry. Are you with me? All these decorations, all this makeup. Say, but Satan has a church, and his church has all these things you are seeing on this woman who sits on a scarlet beast. Are you with me? Look at God's pure woman. Could somebody say amen? God's church is characterized by purity. Beloved, let me tell you, you don't need makeup to make you pretty. The very thing makeup simply means you have a deficiency. God didn't finish with you, so you are going to makeup. Are you with me? Let me tell you, you and I, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. You need not decorate yourself. A clean, virtuous woman represents God's church. A foul, lewd woman represents the what? Apostate church. And so today, beloved, there are some very important lessons that we need to learn. Even in Jacob's experience, he had his daughters wearing things that were not supposed to be worn. Jacob believed that somehow idolatry had invaded the camp and that there were false gods in his household. Rachel still had the gods she had stolen from her father Laban. Are you with me? And look at this now, beloved. Follow me. Genesis 35 and verse 4. It says, so they gave to Jacob all the foreign gods which were in their hands and the earrings. You see, if God wanted you to wear earrings, when you came out of your mother's womb, the holes would have already been there. All you had to do was fit them up. That's a very important lesson. Are you with me, beloved? But we grow up and we pierce our ears. And beloved, not even on the ears, I see them on the people's tongues now. I don't know what is good. Jesus, come quickly. Lord, come quickly. So those of us who are saying, nothing wrong with the little decorations, God spell it out, he says. And the earrings which are in their ears, Jacob hid them under the oak tree which were by Shechem. Is that clear, beloved? As we prepare for the glorious kingdom of God, we have to unload some of the baggage we have. The burden is too heavy for us. We can't cross Jordan, beloved. We need to lighten up from the things of the world. We shall look into his face and ask, Lord, what will I do? And so, beloved, those people give up their jewels. Is a piece of jewel too hard for you to give up for Jesus Christ? But you say, Pastor, I can carry it up there. Let me tell you, we have streets up there that are paved with what? Gold. You have pearly gates. You don't need these things, beloved. Let those things go. And don't come church here on Sabbaths without any, and during the week put it on. But Pastor, nobody sees me. I want to tell you, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the what? Good. If you take the wings of the morning and fly away, he says, there would I be. You go in the depths of the sea, God sees you. He have you covered. Could somebody say amen? So this is a warning to God's church. When the word is spoken, you should remember that you are listening to the voice of God through his delegated servant. And let's follow on with another very important point. Say, sleep not for one instant, because by this slumber you may lose the very words that you need most. The very words which, if heeded, would save your feet from straying into wrong paths. I know it's, we have it hard, very hard during the week. And we come and sometimes we fall asleep. But let's not make this thing a habit, beloved. Amen? Keep up. A preacher may be boring, but keep up. It's still the word of God. Amen. And how about gossip? What's the word? Gossip. Pastor, is there something irreverent with gossip? Let's look at this one. There comes a time in your life when you must realize if they gossip about everyone to you, then they are gossiping about you too. Oh, Pastor, Brother Miller, I'm saying this to you, but keep it a secret. Don't tell anybody. Well, let me tell you, Brother Taylor and Brother Miller, he has a friend. And he will go to the friend and say, well, I pinching you, I telling you this thing, won't say anything. And you know where this is going, right? So we gossip in the home, at the church, at the school. We just keep gossiping all the time. Words of wisdom. Listen carefully how a person speaks about other people to you. This is how they will speak about you to other people. Are you with me? I've dealt into some studies and this is really true. So again, listen carefully how a person speaks about other people to you. For this is how they will speak about you to other people. Don't tell me what was said about me. Tell me why they were so comfortable to say it to you. Are you with me? Let's look at this. This is so powerful. Don't tell me what was said about me. Tell me why they were so comfortable to say it to you. Beloved, if you don't condone this kind of thing, nobody will come to you. But we have this itching ear we want to hear. So somebody come to me, we give them an audience. Let me tell you, if you really are connected to God, you will not participate in this kind of behavior. Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss people. Oh boy, I know what, I've read some word on this beautiful lady, Eleanor Roosevelt. And this is one of her quotations. It has been riveted in my mind. It's so true. Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss who? People. God doesn't want us to do that. And then, beloved, the devil is so smart. In this time of great technological advancement, you get an audience through the telephone. We call people up. Social media, WhatsApp. What are the other ones? WhatsApp. What else? Thank God I'm not so adept with these. Instagram, say somebody. Facebook. Twitter. And we go around. Listen to beloved, we interpret other people's behavior according to our own state of mind. If I'm a thief, I see people through the lens of my own behaviors. Are you with me? That's how it works. I always suspect somebody. I'm not comfortable with them because that is in your mind. We are what we see in others. Listen to Proverbs 20 and verse 19, and this is a sombering thought. It says, he that goeth about as a talebearer revealeth secrets. Therefore meddle not with him that flattereth with his lips. And look, my friends, you know, some people, they don't understand certain things that is happening to them. And you wonder if people put me so. You know, there's a warning, beloved. And this takes us one more step further into reverence. Many heads of families make the service a subject of criticism at home, approving a few things and condemning others. The question is, what impressions are thus made upon the young by these careless, irreverent remarks? The books of heaven alone will reveal. Testimonies for the Church, volume 5, page 490. Let me tell you how this works. In your home, you gather your children, and perhaps friends are there. And all you hear, oh, the pastor was this, the elder was that, the superintendent was that. And we carry on about everything that was bad in the church. Everything that did not go in the way I thought it should go. And we begin to criticize and pull down. Let me tell you, beloved, what you are doing is permanently destroying your audience. Many children are lost today because of what was said in the home concerning leaders of the church. We criticize, and they say, well, when they get big, they say, well, you know, the church treated my parents this, they did bad to them, and they leave the church. That's how it works. The mind is a powerful tool, beloved. Let us be very careful. Let us be very careful. Psalm 141 and verse 3 says, set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth, keep the door of my lips. For it is not mimic battles in which we are engaged. We are waging a warfare upon which hang our eternal results. We have unseen enemies to meet. Evil angels are striving for the dominion of every human being. As I sit here today, as I stand and you sit here, there are two angels wrestling with you. One angel is saying, walk out. The other one is saying, stay. Beloved, let me admonish myself as I admonish you. Let us recognize the great controversy in which we are living. It is not a fight against flesh and blood. It's a warfare. We do not fall in a moment. The predisposition to yield to sin has been forming, building, and germinating. Nobody just leave church suddenly. You don't just get up one morning and say, I'm done with church. Beloved, the predisposition to yield to sin has been forming, building, and germinating in the mind. And when the time comes, it is like a tree filled with mangoes. Some of the mangoes have already fallen. The stem is cut, but it got stuck in the branch. it never comes to the ground. So you are still on the tree, but there is no what? No connection. And sometime, beloved, when a wind blows a little harder than usual, what happened? The mangoes come falling down. I beg of my people today, let us be connected to Jesus Christ. Let us stay connected, for we do not fall in a moment. That predisposition to yield to sin has been forming, it's building up, and it's germinating. Satan plants a subtle stimuli. He influences an attitude. He wins a minor victory, always in preparation for the what? For the big fall. That's how he does it. And so, beloved, the good book says, cast all your cares upon him, for he careth for you. The only match to the devil is Jesus Christ. He says, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And so we have some good news. The Savior is by the side of his tempted and tried ones. With him, there can be no such thing as failure, loss, impossibility, or defeat. The good news is we can do all things through him who strengthens us. This is our pages, page 490. And so today, like the psalmist David, we say, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. I've set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. May you choose life today. The song says, mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. 647. I invite you to stand to your feet as we give God the praise and the glory for revealing his word to us today.
See the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. He has sounded forth the trumpet that shall never call retreat. He is sifting out the hearts of men before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer him. Be jubilant at my feet. Our God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. In the beauty marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Oh, glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
The instructions are given. The word of God has gone forward. And we pray that we apply it to our lives, in our everyday lives as we as believers. Let us pray. Father in heaven, what a wonderful Savior you are, and we thank you for the word that has been spoken today. Your manservant has done his part, and it's up to us now to apply it to our lives. Forgive us our sins, we pray. And now we pause in benediction, and the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you peace. Peace in your hearts and in your minds, and peace with the Prince of Peace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
You may be seated.